Hi, influencers. Today's a different kind of VI show. We're talking about whether to post or not to post. With so many crazy things going on in the world, a pandemic, economic crisis, and this current troubling times going on in this country, it's hard for people to understand if it's appropriate to post or not to post. You post something and you might be seen as insensitive. You don't post something, your silence could be looked at as a problem. You try to post something in support of the movement, and someone could still attack you because you didn't do it wrong. Today, I've got an amazing panel of creators who are going to share their perspective and their protocols for how they navigate these times. It's very important for Sean and I to make one thing very clear. The murder of George Floyd was wrong. It should have never happened, and we hope that it will never happen again. As you know, we've been proud of the diversity of our community and have always focused on making sure our interviews reflect that. We hope that people can learn from this tragedy to build towards a more equal country and world. However, for the sake of the current issue, we're in support of the fight against systematic racism against African Americans in this country. We hope that we can band together to stand up to create that equality in this country and world, and hope that this discussion will help you understand better how to support what's going on. With that being said, let's get started. My name is Benji Travis. Welcome to Video Influencers, where we're helping build your influence, income, and impact with online videos. Sean and I started this channel to help you guys crush it on this channel. We're the co-authors of YouTube Secrets. And I'm honored because I've got two amazing creators from YouTube who are going to be joining me for this discussion and this conversation around posting or not posting. So I want to say hi to Donna and Roberto. What's going on, guys?
Hey, everyone.
Hey, Benji, thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolutely honored. If you guys aren't familiar, I want to introduce who these people are. First, let's start with Donna. Donna is using psychology to analyze contemporary themes, pop culture, and the internet. Donna has some amazing content where she breaks down the psychology of different creators and types of content they create and why. Definitely should go visit her channel. You're going to get lost in her videos, and I love her perspective. And because she comes from a psychology background, it's so relevant for what we're talking about. She's a very successful creator in a very niche content type, and we were actually supposed to interview Donna today for a whole nother topic, but I thought it was very appropriate. And not to switch directions from Donna, but I want to next introduce Roberto. So a lot of you know Roberto as somebody that's been teaching people about creating something awesome on not just YouTube, but on social media. His channel is very successful, one of the OGs in the YouTube expert space. We've had him on this show multiple times, and I know it's pretty obvious one of the reasons I want him to be part of this discussion. And so I really respect him. I love his perspective, and I think it's so relevant to have him part of this conversation around what to post and not to post. And if you haven't seen his last video, I definitely would urge you to. So I guess my first question will be for the two of you, and Donna, you can take it. What are your thoughts on what's going on in the world, and how has it affected you? What are the things that you've considered just generally when it comes to creating content? Donna, I'll let you go first.
I mean, it's absolutely devastating, obviously. And in terms of creating content, I think it puts a lot of creators in a confusing place because on one hand, it's like your platform is sort of an extension of your voice, and you don't want to seem like you're virtue signaling. And I know some people can take it like that, and sometimes it seems like a lose-lose situation because whatever you post, people seem like they hate it no matter what. You're either virtue signaling or, you know, you're not doing enough.
Absolutely. And I love what you mentioned. And it's actually a term that I try to avoid using too much because I don't want me saying virtue signaling as a way as me judging others and what they're trying to do as negative. I do believe everybody has the right to post about what they want to post, how they want to post it, but also people have the right to reply to them, right? I mean, that's the nature
Yeah,
of social
totally.
media. It's this community of conversation. So thank you, Donna. Roberto, bring us a little bit of perspective from your side, not just as a creator, but as an African American male that is going through these hard times, how it's affected you both mentally, emotionally, as well as how you've been navigating these times when it comes to your business and your platforms.
Well, the first thing is, and thank you. The first thing is, I have to make one minor correction because I am Black in America, but I don't have the struggles of being African American specifically because I'm a first generation American, Benji. And it's important to say that because it's important to respect those differences and that there are different types of systemic and historical context and struggles that I never want to appropriate, even as someone who has the general day-to-day Black experience and the same Black anxiety as people who do have that background, but they have a compounded, tragic history that me and my family don't share as me being a first generation American and the son of immigrants, you know. So my mother was born here in first generation on her side, but she was initially raised by her grandfather in Panama. My father was born in Canal Zone, Panama, went to the Marine Corps when he turned 17 after being here as a teenager, and he dealt with prejudice and racial discrimination on a lot of different sides, a lot of it for being Black and being in the military back then, but also for not being American in terms of he was a citizen, he was a soldier, but he was never American enough. And we've felt that, and it's a different experience. And one of the things right now, in terms of our different experiences, it's hard for Black creators to sometimes speak about their experiences. And there's a lot of pressure to do so right now. It's one of the reasons I made my video was I wanted to let people know that what you can do is what you should do if you feel ready and comfortable, but not everyone is. Not everyone's ready to revisit their own traumas, and not everyone feels comfortable because they may have had no similar experiences that are relatable right now. Whether you're a Black creator or whether you're another person of color or whether you're a white ally, the thing is some people feel pressured to speak when they don't know how to add any value to a conversation. And the thing is, if you can't add value to a conversation, it's perfectly all right to step back and be honest about that and say you just want and need to be more educated. And so I think that was important to say. And I also think it's important for me to make that distinction that it's not my place to speak for some people. It's not my place really in many cases to speak for anybody but myself and the people that are in my creator community. I can offer you my perspective though, and I can offer you my lived experiences.
Thank you. And that's exactly what I want to mention. None of us, Donna, Roberto, or myself, feel like we're speaking for our race or our ethnicity, or even like we can speak to related to our community, but this is a conversation between the three of us that I hope people can learn from our perspectives. I'm actually looking to learn from both you, Donna and Roberto, and listen. I think that's one of the benefits of what's happened is now we're listening to people's experiences. And Roberto, even you, we talked the other day and you shared something that happened to you in your past that maybe would have never been something we discussed, but you've felt comfortable now to share it. You feel compelled and it's important. So this is a question for both of you right now. Real generally, should people be posting? Yes or no? Why or why not?
Don, I'd love for you to go first.
Sure. So I think Roberto mentioned this when he was introduced, but I mean, you can do whatever you want. It's your platform, and if you feel like if you feel like you're pressured to post, that isn't a good reason to post because, again, like Roberto said, you're not really adding value. What you're posting is coming from pressure. But if for some reason you're you feel like you need to post and you're nervous about what your audience says, what your viewers' responses will be, then post.
Yeah.
Like, if that means that you and your viewers don't have that shared value, and if you lose those viewers, it's a benefit for you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you mentioned. That's a great way to lead that this discussion is don't feel pressured to post, because I know a lot of people do. And that's the whole point of this discussion, post or not to post. And one thing that I know from watching a lot of your content, which obviously I've already said was amazing, you guys should check it out, is you made a point in one of your uploads about mob mentality. It sounds kind of aggressive to say that, but there is a reality of mob mentality and how it can actually effectively exaggerate certain voices and almost make other people have a voice that's not even theirs. So can you talk about mob mentality, what it is, what's the principles of it, and why it's important for creators to be aware it's going on, because it could be pressuring them to do something they don't feel compelled to do from inside.
Right. So, yeah, it does sound like a very harsh term, but just look at it from a psychological perspective. It's a psychological term, and it's been taken out of context because of the internet. You know, people use it for every single thing, but, you know, it's just a psychological term. And so, mob mentality happens in real life. You see this in sporting events. When the team loses or wins, for some reason the mob goes crazy and nobody can explain why they're destroying the city and stuff like that. And so what happens is there's two factors. There's anonymity. So in a crowd, the individual feels anonymous and they're compelled to do anything, you know, like destroy the city, things like that.
Yeah.
And so this also happens online, where people jump on a topic and they go to the extremes. This happened. A very notable example with the it's I'm going blank on it, but the you know, the shuttle that kind of, it was it Challenger?
Oh yeah.
That,
Okay, so the SpaceX launch.
right, yeah. So what happened was the group of scientists and researchers on that doing that research, individually, privately, they had feelings that things were wrong with the ship, but because they wanted to stay with the group and they wanted to fit in with the group, they ignored those negatives of the research, and you know, the rest is history. And
Yeah.
it was
Wait, are you
devastating.
talking about the launch
And
in the
so,
90s? The launch in the 90s?
it was that really, it really escapes me, but it was on TV, and
Yeah.
you know, I think it went, it was going out from Earth, and then
Oh yeah,
it kind of,
it was a
yeah,
one in the 80s. Yeah, I believe it was a Challenger.
right,
But yeah, I understand what you're saying. And so, I mean, the reason I love your perspective on the mob mentality is because one things I've always carried as a principle for myself in terms of posting in general, but it's so relevant right now during a crisis or anytime you have uncertainty. Make sure you're comfortable with yourself and what you stand for, and start
right,
from there. The conversation with yourself, right, needs to start at a place of trust with what you believe in and your principles and your intention to do good. Right? Because there will be times where that mob that you cannot fight. I mean, it's impossible. There's, like I always say, for every one hater or negative comment, there's 1,000 behind it ready to support if you somehow won the argument with them. So always be comfortable. I think that's a principle for everybody. Roberto, what are your thoughts? I mean, of course, like we dug in pretty deep with mob mentality, but
Sure.
Should people post? Why or why not? And what is your perspective right now, especially, like I said, in your unique perspective?
Yeah. So there's a couple of things, and this has even affected me before we had the continued series of tragedies between, Ahmed Aubrey, Breonna Taylor, and then George Floyd. We also then had the pandemic, and then we had the economic crisis following that. And many of us as creators were trying to figure out how to be sensitive to that, because many of us live lifestyles and have businesses that we're in control of our income. And we ended up in a situation where now 40 million people have lost their jobs. 16 million of those people are never getting them back. So is it okay for me to post a video about why I went out and bought a $1,500 monitor, or is that insensitive? Is that flexing, even though that's a really good title for a video about my process as a video editor and why I did that upgrade? So I didn't post that video. Actually, weirdly, like, I went through a lot of effort in shooting some stuff for that, but I was like, okay, maybe this isn't the right time. There's so much going on where people have lost their jobs and all of this stuff. More time goes on, a lot of these problems keep coming up. There's always this chaos with this pandemic. And so there's a lot of videos that just never went out because it felt insensitive to people's financial situations. On the back of that, now you have multiple tragic death after tragic death after tragic death in the public eye. And now protest going on, violence in the streets, massive political change. What is sensitive, what is insensitive is largely, yes, a matter of perspective, but there's also a such thing as common sense. And there's also a such thing as common decency, and figuring out you can post and you should post, but how can you do it in a thoughtful way? And how can you do it respecting the situation that we're in? Because the other part of this, as somebody who also has been openly discussing the struggles that I've had with mental health on multiple levels, my own past with that. And then also in my recent video, one of the topics that I addressed is the topic of Black anxiety. And that, as you know, since I told you, what happened to me a few years ago, that mine has been amplified by that situation, and it affects things and choices I make in my everyday life. This situation, should have done it sooner. This situation made me go out and buy a two-way dash cam. There's all these different things. I have certain apps on my phone that I can make it easier for me if I actually get pulled over by the cops to live stream or to call or do voice command stuff. I mean, it's like there's a different protocol literally for me driving in my car than someone who's not Black. Because for me, the not having my ID on me or not having a way to show what might happen to me or hold an officer accountable could be a death sentence instead of an inconvenience. Some people, they drive, they worry about getting a ticket. I have to worry about becoming a damn hashtag. So that's a whole different thing. So when it comes to posting, even for me, I had to consider and think about, if I post something and I don't acknowledge or talk about this, what does that say even about me? And that's not me even projecting onto anyone else. I'm saying that other people have told me they had their experience too. They don't know whether they can post or talk about this. Even as a Black creator, talking about our Blackness by society has been inconvenient and made a liability to our opportunities, and has not, frankly, been allowed. And it seems like it's only allowed in these situations. And so there's a pressure for every Black creator as to whether they speak out or whether they talk about this or whether they tell their own stories or where they stand, because they feel that they might get called out for it. Or again, in their own mind, they're like, can I make anything and not talk about this and be able to look at myself in the mirror and and feel like I've honored my conscience? So it's one thing for a Black creator to figure out whether or not they should post or what they should post about, or whether they should post about this, and then they can go to normal content that they know they want to make for their audience, that their audience wants, needs, or deserves from them, or whether they should only talk about this. Or again, can they even do it and bring themselves to do it because they've already been conditioned to feel they can't talk about their Blackness or about Black issues. Yeah. So there's that thought. But for our friends, I'm encouraging our friends to understand that, hey, those who protest on the front line, when they come home, they need to watch something else before they go to bed. They can't see only this horror and tragedy and madness in their feed. They need something else. So if there's something positive and you can give them an escape hatch, so that they can wake up and get through their day or go back to the front lines tomorrow, then that's good. And we should act in good faith and with good intentions. And you shouldn't be afraid to do something that you know is well-intentioned and positive. It's just that if people confront you on it, just be honest about your reasons why and what you hope to give in value. Just be honest, because guess what? People are going to come for your neck every day anyway. It's not like as content creators, we don't get bad comments. I still to this day, on occasion, get racist comments that go straight to my spam, and I have to go through whether I can handle deleting them today or not. It's every day. Criticism on the internet, Donna will tell you, being criticism is every day. There are creators right now speaking out. It's like, great, they're going to be canceled for the 15th time.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Again, as much as I want to share my perspective and experiences and protocols for knowing how to post, when to post, for me, this discussion, the honor for me is the learning moment. So thank you for sharing that, Roberto. And I'm always learning from you, obviously. Usually it's about YouTube, but now it's about you and what you've gone through. Anything you want to add or follow up with, Donna, to that? Because I feel like there was just so much there, so much value that I believe you and I could relate as content creators, and also potentially, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but for me, learn as somebody that doesn't know. I think that's what's unique about this discussion. Usually, people are afraid to have this conversation, so they just don't post, or they're just so careful. And then they make the mistake and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm horrible. And then mental health is an issue as well on both sides of this. Can you follow up that or give me your thoughts on what I just said?
Yeah, for sure. So even for me, yesterday, I was thinking of what to post, and I thought the best way for me to help, and I think that's something that creators can take from this, is what's the best value you can give as a creator to help the cause? I'm not Mr. Beast, so I can't donate $50,000, but I have my platform, and I think that's the best way I could help. And I still had that anxiety of, will this help the cause? And so what I personally did is I had a call with Roberto and I discussed my video idea with him. And I think we had a pretty good conversation. Questions I had were, if I talk about corruption and things like that, would that be like, what is it called? Like,
dismissive.
Am I discrediting? Yeah, dismissive of Black Lives Matter. Like, things like that.
For sure. And thank you so much. I think that's another thing I would just want to highlight and just hear from you as well, Roberto, or you can reply to it, Donna, is as creators, we're creative. We have a unique way of presenting ideas, perspectives, to entertain, to add value, to inform, to educate. And that's what makes us special. And we have the power to utilize that to be able to direct that. Again, no rules. I've seen some creators literally straight up to the camera, just have a conversation, and then other people do some things that are kind of risky, but again, that is their superpower and that's their unique way. When I decided how I was going to post, by the way, on Blackout Tuesday, I didn't post anything because I thought it was a day where you don't post, and I happened to not even be on Instagram or social media in general all day long. And then Wednesday morning, I find all these horrible DMs saying like, oh, you're part of the problem, you're an oppressor. I just didn't know. And also, I was planning something else. So yesterday, I went live with a mentor of mine and a friend of 20 years. His name is JJ. And we had this very frank conversation about racism. And this is just a little snippet of our conversation. And I just asked him questions that I've always wanted, just like we're having right here. So that's the one takeaway. And again, like what I heard from you, Donna, is sharing our perspective, right? And doing it in a creative way, but doing it from a place of caring and the intent to support. And then, utilize friendships you have to find out what's the best way to spread the word, where you can be as careful you can, but don't drive yourself crazy. Like, have a little bit of forgiveness for yourself. Any thoughts on that, Roberto or Donna?
So actually, one thing I want to bring up is something in the chat, and I actually had to say this in Twitter and talk to creators about this. One, you will not lose opportunities and brand deals over speaking up about this. I have had personal conversations with 5 of the major, largest brands that back and support content creators, and I'm not going to speak for them, but they're even looking at how they can speak up because they don't want to be silent. They want to address these issues, but they also are dealing with the skepticism of whether people will think it's a PR stunt from them or not, and they've said, screw it. I know that we're going to get that criticism. We get that criticism for everything every day. But the thing is, they want to donate, they want to speak up, and they want the creators that are in the Black community and the Latino community, creators of color, they want in these issues, it's Pride Month. They want creators to know that they are supported. And I've encouraged them, one, to do a little bit more beyond that. I've told them, look, I'll give you a list of creators that I know are very passionate and care about this, that are very thoughtful, and that you can talk to become more educated and to make sure that what you put out doesn't feel tone deaf or doesn't become a spectacle or a distraction so that the news talks about you instead of the issues, because that's important. And they were very receptive to that. I also said, you need to reach out, or you need to make clear in some public way that you're not going to cut ties with creators for protesting as long as they're lawful. You need to make sure that creators know they're not going to lose those opportunities, or like that you're not going to cut ties because they speak up and they use their platform, or because they donate, or because they take a stand. They need to know that. And it's not just selfish on those creators' parts. Many of these creators, this is their job. This is how they feed their family. This is their livelihood. And we should all be sensitive to that in the wake of 40 million Americans, 16 million who are never getting their jobs back in that capacity. Many people worldwide beyond that don't know where that check is coming from, how they put food on the table for their kids. We can't just say that that's selfish. We have to respect where people are and that their priorities aren't wrong. And then beyond that, so I told the brands they need to make sure that creators know that that's not in jeopardy. There's another factor in terms of creators not understanding that if they post, it's okay to lose some fans and some followers. And I know that that sounds very easy for you to say, big creator, whatever. Look, I knew that I have a majority white audience when I posted that video. I didn't think most people would want to see or hear that from me, but that's not why I made the video. I made the video partly for myself, anyone like me, and anyone who needed to hear it, and I had a point. And part of it was that creators need to know that posting about this is okay, not posting about this is okay, and that the things that you need to look at doing is make sure that you're doing everything for the right reasons and that you're communicating that. And if people want to take it a certain way, that's not your problem and that's not your responsibility. And they're going to do it anyway. You don't control that. Me and Donna recently did a collab where we talked about the nature of internal and external locus of control. And remember, you're in charge of you and no one else. And that's kind of like my big thing here for anybody worrying about it. And for anyone who says, well, I don't think that during this time with this topic that people will want my normal content. Yes, they will, because I want your normal content. Because again, if I look at what's happening too much, I'll crawl into a hole that I might not be able to get back out of. Because in dealing with depression, in dealing with anxiety, and the fact that I have a real lived experience of this type of trauma, where I've been assaulted and then also not treated like a victim by the police, treated instead like a perpetrator, like a suspect, and then not giving compassion in our healthcare system when I came in as a victim. I mean, I have already lived this. I don't need to relive it every 30 seconds in Twitter, my friends. I don't need to do that. I need to understand what's happening, sure. I also need relief. I also need something that lets me protect my peace and my mental health. So I need your content, and I need you to be thoughtful, and I need you to understand that as well as educate yourself about these issues.
Yeah. Again, thank you for sharing. That's some heavy stuff. And I think it's important for people to hear because some people don't have the relationship to be able to hear something like that. And like you mentioned, they're just getting it all online. And so, I mean, it's easy to be confused. And I want to kind of get into like how people are perceiving things. Again, like it's a completely different world of the mental health of somebody on social media and getting hate versus what you actually experience, right? I'm not discounting anybody's pain, but I want to ask both of you an important question. And it kind of relates to what you said, Roberto, and Donna. I would love for you to start off with your thoughts. But Blackout Tuesday was a day where we wanted to surface the message of Black Lives Matter, right? Against systemic racism against African Americans. However, some people are saying now it should be the whole week. Well, who makes that rule? Like, how are you supposed to know? You and I both know, Donna, it's almost impossible to know all the rules, right? All the etiquette that comes along that people assume you should know. What are your thoughts on that? Like, where is it your responsibility to know what is going on and what is a good etiquette versus going so extreme? It actually takes away from being productive and actually being of value, not only to your audience in general, but even to the cause. Because at one point, I mean, part of what makes us influencers is we have an influence, but it starts from our content, right? And that consistency. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, Donna. But again, like I love your perspective because you come from a psychological observation, and also you're thinking about mental health and those type of things.
Right. So there's this weird thing that happens, and it's almost like gatekeeping. You're either not doing enough or you're doing too much, but for the wrong intentions. And I don't think you should demonize anyone for having good intentions. And yes, there are times where people are tone deaf. And, you know, just my sister for the other day, there was this woman who made this post and she said, these are my favorite Black members of this certain group or this certain club. And she listed down my sister, and my sister's not Black. And so my sister didn't come at her with hate or anything like that. She privately DM'd her and said, hey, I'm not Black, blah, 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 blah. And so yeah, there was no hate, there was no animosity towards that. There is a certain way and a respectful way to address something that's tone deaf with care and respect because their intentions were good. And that's how changes happen. It comes with empathy and understanding. Nobody has ever been convinced nobody has ever been convinced from someone yelling at them and saying you have to change, you know? And so yeah, that's just basically my thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Is how do you you have to ask yourself when you see something that maybe isn't maybe, you know, is a little tone deaf, how would you want to convince this person to be on your side?
Yeah, I agree. You know, one thing I think of myself is hate only angers people.
Right.
Hope, love, care is what inspires. And when you come from that place of caring, right, where you want to support, I mean, that's why that's a number one place. And so, Roberto, I would love to ask you because, I mean, like, even somebody's silence online can be judged negatively. And because of it, they might say something online when you don't know what's even going on with that person. Now, what's ironic about that is people judging you based off what you're doing or not doing. Well, isn't that the same way when you are looking at a person and judging them for the skin, like the color of their skin? Like, you have no idea where they came from. By the way, it doesn't even matter the color of your skin. You might just assume something by the way they're dressed or whatever. So taking a moment to step back and giving yourself a little bit of time to think a little bit before you post. My mom, one of the number one lessons I learned from mom is think before you speak. Right? Because people are so reactionary. If you, one, do that for yourself, I think it would be helpful. But two, think about that for the other person on the other side that as posting, because they might not have thought through their attack on you. They might be coming from a place of anger or hurt. What are your thoughts there? And going back to that question of, what's the responsibility of an influencer to know what's going on and act versus not driving themselves crazy?
Ask before you assume, and ask before you act.
Yes.
And it's really simple, but it's powerful. Ask before you assume. Before you assume somebody is doing the wrong thing, before you assume someone's malicious, before you assume somebody's a bad actor, ask questions, gain context, act in good faith yourself, rather than jumping the gun and picking up a pitchfork. Because if you got it wrong, you can't undo that. There are consequences for them, and there's consequences for you. And then you also might have created a situation that goes beyond that one interaction. And that in itself is the problem that we're facing here. And the thing is, even asking yourself, why am I doing this? Or why do I believe this? Or what's the right thing? You see, if people asked before they assumed, and if people asked before they acted, I wouldn't have to wake up with so much anxiety every morning and every time I walk out of the house. So you see, asking, getting clarity, giving reasonable doubt, not assuming things, and not acting from a place of ignorance or acting from a place of not knowing or having concrete facts goes a long way for everybody. But just remember that if everybody did it more, it'd be easier for people like me. We might not even have to be having this very live stream about this very issue if that simple thing that should be common sense was actually common practice.
Awesome. And we've gone pretty deep into this conversation, which, by the way, I am enjoying. Again, thank you to both of you for being on here. I just got a couple quick ones for you to kind of wrap this up and give that clarity for creators to move forward. So Donna, I'll start with you. I know you've mentioned some of your experiences, but say a friend was asking you, say another creator like myself, I'm going to straight up ask you, what are the considerations you make during any crisis, including this one, and what is the protocol for you to know when to post and when you can start posting regularly, and how do you know when that threshold is crossed?
Yeah, so when to post regularly, I think Roberto gave me some really good insight on that, because as creators, we do, as weird and first world as it sounds, we do bring a lot of joy and escapism with our regular content. And, I think it's fine to post your regular content during this time. And in terms of addressing tragedy, if you are not well versed and researched in that tragedy, don't post. Don't feel like you need to post, because if you do, it's going to be ignorant because you didn't do your research on that tragedy.
Sure. Yeah, it'll almost feel kind of forced, correct?
Right.
Yeah, and that's when mistakes are made, which, by the way, again, have forgiveness for yourself. Like, if you want to support a cause, but you're not completely educated on it, you might make a mistake. And again, as an influencer, you already know it comes with the territory. People will judge you. Yeah. People are not going to always agree. There's always that negative comment. You could have the best video in the world and you still get a dislike. Roberto, I want to also hear from you. Has there ever been a video that literally got 0 dislikes in all history of your uploads?
I've uploaded so much that maybe only because my haters missed it. Because like I keep them pretty busy.
And
Keep them
so,
pretty
like,
busy. So like, yeah.
so how about you follow up with your answer on what are the considerations that you make? Because, by the way, you have an interesting seat right now in terms of your answer, because both you are part of this movement that's going on, as well as your consideration protocols. I'm curious what those are for other crises, right? And that you think would help me as a creator understand and learn from how to best know when to post regularly. And I think we kind of heard a little bit of it from Donna, but I would love for the audience to hear from you.
So part of it is sometimes just the packaging, which I've talked about even in the how to grow your content and your audience, is that you're packaging for maximum attention, maximum effect, maximum impact to get people to engage with your content. In situations like these, your packaging is what will be the first determination that people make, whether something is appropriate or insensitive, or just, okay, this just exists and this is fine. So the thing is, it's a matter of packaging. In a financial crisis, you could still make a video that could be an unboxing, or could be a haul video, or a DIY, or something like that. But maybe the way you package it, title it, thumbnail it, is more benign and not something that flexes your wealth and your luxuries. Okay, there's a way to deal with during a crisis like this, that maybe you step back from edgy humor a little bit, and your humor is more let's all feel good, and you slightly change your approach there, because it's different for every niche and every type of content. And the other thing is, you have to engage with your audience. Ask your audience how they feel right now, because they're the ones that you're doing this for. Is aside from yourself, they're the ones you're doing this for. The other thing I would say is, don't capitalize on or exploit these moments in time just purely for your own personal gain, because we see a lot of influencers trying to ride the coattails of this. Be responsible, be thoughtful, and like understand that. And if you don't have the intentions of doing that and of making a spectacle of yourself, then don't sit there and don't paralyze yourself with the fear that you're going to be perceived of doing it that way. Most people will understand. There will be outliers. And the thing is, there's always going to be that. There's always going to be, like you said, that dislike, that negative content, that jerk face. There's always going to be those people that will, there'll be people who will even manufacture your intentions for you off the littlest thing. I mean, Donna could read you the riot act on like people who do that for a living on this platform. Okay. The point is that I'm wanting to make is, here's what I look at. One, I do an internal audit of my own intentions. Two, I'm very thoughtful and respectful of my audience, and I engage with my audience every day in some way, shape, or form. Number three, I try to post something that I know adds collective good to people, either in how they feel or it benefits their lives. And number four, in this particular instance, I also make sure that the way I'm packaging it, the way that I'm presenting it, that it's obvious and clear what my intentions are, and that I state them up front. And then finally, in this particular moment, something I've encouraged content creators to do is, you can post your content to your YouTube channel, your TikTok, your Instagram, but maybe in the places where we're all having conversations, you leave that room open. So post, but don't promote, was a message that I put out in a short video in Twitter. It has about, I think, 400 retweets, 100,000 views. I was very shocked at the response from the creator community, but I essentially, and it's not my place or my permission to give, but I do feel people took it as I gave them permission to say, hey, you can post right now. It's okay to post content, and it's okay to post content that's just for the purposes of making your audience feel good and giving them an escape and giving them a release and giving them something not horrible in their day. Even me, Benji, and you've seen this, I've literally just, like, a lot of times I've been posting pictures of my dogs so that there's one good thing in somebody's feed today. Just one good thing in the world to remind you to not embrace despair as your new normal. We cannot allow despair and destruction and it's too exhausting to always be angry. I want to give you permission to not have to be angry every minute of every day because it's exhausting. All right. I want to give you permission to not be sad every minute of every day because it is exhausting. And so if what you want to do is going to allow someone to not have to be so bloody exhausted right now, then you shouldn't hesitate to do that, and you shouldn't be crippled by anxiety around it. I understand why you are, but it is important for you to do that. And it's important for you to do that for people like me and for people on the front lines, for people who have their struggles with mental health, for young people out there who aren't able to cope with this right now. It is important that you put something out for them. And if you are not educated on these issues, here's something you can do with the conversation portions of your platform instead of promoting your own content. You can elevate experts, people who are data scientists, people who are experts in criminal justice and in litigation and so on and so forth. You can elevate those experts because the data scientists and the experts and the psychologists and all of these people, they're not influencers. Experts are not influencers and influencers are not experts. If you're not educated to speak on this, then elevate the people who are educated to speak on this and use your platform in that way for good. And understand that you can amplify the reach of these moments in time and the injustices that have happened in the wake of all of this, so that people understand that this isn't over and it doesn't end. It doesn't begin or end with George Floyd or David Akti or Breonna Taylor or Ahmed Aubrey or anyone else. It doesn't begin and it doesn't, unfortunately, and it won't end with them. And the thing is, it's going beyond that every single day. And the reality is it always has. But now that we know that we can do something. We can add comfort, we can add relief, we can amplify experts, and sometimes we can just say that we're here for people. And you know what? All of it, if it's the best you can do, then it's enough.
Yeah, for sure. And there's been so many amazing questions, but I feel both of you have already answered them before I could even ask. There's just one really short question I want to ask it's pretty blunt. And it's from PE4 Doers. And it says, is it wrong to believe that everyone should be held accountable? Simple. I'm not even going to add anything. Donna, what's your answer to that?
Is it wrong that everyone should be held accountable? That's so difficult because I mean, is it wrong that everyone should be accountable for the things they say online? Yes. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean you have to approach, if whatever they say doesn't align with your values or is totally wrong, that doesn't mean you should approach them with hate. The key word is accountability. Educate them. And I know the thing is, it's not my job to educate this person, but if you want change, then that's what you have to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting, even the way you answered it, because this is why I kind of left it that way. I didn't want to give it any context. Well, accountable to what, right? Like,
and to whom?
Right.
Yeah, exactly. For what and when I read that question, I was like, held accountable for not speaking up, right? For not being part of a cause or a movement. There's just so much there. And that's why at the end of the day, you can't go crazy with this. Gotta maybe take a break sometimes. Mental health, sometimes it means taking a break and not being online. Sometimes it means going gung-ho and being part of the peaceful protests and marching. So I loved your answer because, again, it's like people are going to read that question or they're going to read a comment or some kind of hate and take away from it something different. And this is why it is very hard to get define something from a Twitter post. This is why I believe conversations are really powerful. You can get so much more out of it. Roberto, I want to quickly give you the floor to answer that question, and then we're going to wrap this up. So we were going to do this for 30 minutes. Hopefully you guys don't have anywhere to go. If you got to bounce out, let me know. But Roberto, what would be your answer to that question? Is it wrong to believe that everyone should be held accountable?
It's also in itself, and I understand the question, but it's somewhat itself the wrong question. I am not the arbiter of truth and justice in this world, nor should I want to be. And everyone should beware of a righteous anger. Righteous anger, it offers you poison disguised as comfort. And it's a fake friend that doesn't care about what happens to you after it gets its way. So, but the thing is, anger is a natural and instinctive reaction to an injustice. But I already told you, it's a fake friend. Once it gets its way, once it has its way with you, it doesn't care about the consequences for you. It doesn't care about what happens in its wake. And righteous anger is the worst of all because you can rationalize it, you can excuse it, and you have to understand that everybody who perpetrates injustice themselves is acting from a place of self-righteousness. And so you have to be very, very careful with that because it is a fake friend. And you also have to have the humility to understand that you are not the ultimate authority and they're not answerable to you. And so you have to be careful with that when you use the word accountability, because we have to have the humility to ask ourselves, who are we to hold the person accountable? And did we do our due diligence? Because the thing is, what if you're wrong? What if you're wrong? Because you have to remember, the thing that people are protesting against right now is injustices perpetrated by people who have moral authority and also have legal authority, and who are convinced that they are right when they are not. And you cannot become the thing that you're fighting against. And that happens so many times, history after history and history after history. We are all very fortunate that I'm not the arbitrator of truth and justice in this world, because remember, I will tell you that I was an angry and judgmental young man in my late teens and in my 20s. And I really, out of my own pain and my own hurt, genuinely wanted to watch the world burn sometimes. And the thing is, that's what makes me a little bit more careful and thoughtful as someone who's about to turn 36, because I understand what it is to squander your opportunities and to damage your mind by carrying the burden of that anger and believing in the cheap dopamine that it gives you to feel self-righteous and to feel like you know best. And so we all have to be very careful with that. And the best thing that we can do is we can ask questions and educate ourselves instead of assuming. And we need to be careful, and we always need to consider the possibility that we're not right and that we won't get it all right and that we don't always have all the facts and we don't always have all the answers. And so, is it wrong? The question you should ask is, am I wrong? Am I educated? Am I correct? And who am I? And am I acting from a sense of self-righteousness, or am I acting from a place of concern? And then you need to really parse that, and you need to reflect on that. Because again, it's very easy, especially right now, to decide for yourself that you're the arbiter of truth and justice and you have a responsibility to see it done, because the same 5 vigilante jerk faces that decided to corner me in an alley absolutely believed that they got it right, and they didn't.
Wow. By the way, I've definitely taken away a lot of great lessons in this conversation, and we're about to wrap this up for reals this time, right? Just want to say thank you to both of you. I wanted to give you guys both a couple more minutes after I just make this statement and try to connect with this community about what's going on and my final perspectives. But I appreciate your time and, being willing to visit this uncomfortable conversation and being bold enough to, Sure, we're live right now. We're connecting with people in the chats. And by the way, I know that there might be some questioning of what we're talking about or disagreements. Completely okay. That's what makes YouTube awesome. So the last thing I want to say, and it's definitely selfish moment here. You know, Sean and I started this channel because YouTube has changed our life. We even named our book, and I'm not doing this to promote this book for sales. I'm just making a point. YouTube Secrets was going to be named Video Influencers. We realized how unique and special YouTube is as a platform. You want to talk about equality in a crazy world? I think YouTube is that platform that represents it. Don't get me wrong. There is negativity, hate, there's trolling to the point where sometimes it can lead people to mental breakdown or burnout, but it also elevates people to stardom, no matter what your color is, what your race is. We've got someone that's a black person in America that is a superstar in our world. Right? I'm an Asian American that connects with all types of audiences. We have a female creator. There are so many examples just on this channel, all the interviews that we've done to show you that it really doesn't matter where you come from, what your skin color is. And that's amazing. And I'm not trying to be super cheesy, all positive, but the reality is there is some light in this darkness. And one of my favorite things that I learned from Roberto, watching his video on his channel that he recently uploaded, is this is an important time to add more value, positivity into the world, no matter what type of content that is. I think taking a moment to step back and consider people's feelings, and Sean Cannell told me something I think is the most important thing, to have empathy for people. To have empathy for someone that's in pain and hurting. Right now, that support that we have from our empathy is for Black Lives Matter. However, moving forward, hopefully the lesson is always have that empathy, but also don't drive yourself crazy to the point where you're not going to upload because they're afraid of being attacked. You know, when people protested back in the 40s, 50s, 60s for equality in this country, people felt some pain. And they went through some major troubles. But there was a lot of good that came out of that. So, Donna, I'm going to give you a couple minutes to just share your last thoughts that you would want to share to the audience. And specifically, if there is another influencer on the other side that was asking you, you know, like, what do I need to know? What are your, it doesn't have to be long. It can be short, whatever. I want to know, like, because this was a heavy conversation and I want to give you a chance to wrap it up.
Yeah, to wrap it up, I just want to promote a few Black creators that I've been watching during this time. And I really like Spanky Valentine's Swoop. She's super entertaining. She makes these videos about going into one-star, like, nail salons and hair salons and things like that. I also like YC Image. Oh my gosh, I'm butchering his name, but he's a Black music
YC
video.
Image is correct.
Yes. I love his videos. I love his perspective on cameras and tech. And I like it because he comes from a background of making music videos. And that's a really important perspective to have if you're looking for gear. Yeah.
Roberto?
Yeah, I want to do something very similar in that regard. But I also, again, I want to remind people that we need that light in the world. We need those positive voices. We need those things. And I don't want you to ever feel that your value is less. You know, never feel that. We already have people who, like myself, who have to constantly wake up and feel that their value is less for one reason or another. And I never want creators to look at this moment and say that, well, I'm not important right now. The thing is, the value that you can create has always been important and it's always mattered. You just need to do it in a thoughtful and responsible way. With that in mind, there are a few Black creators that I would like to go ahead and to promote at this time. And by the way, I love Christopher and what he's doing. He's YC Imaging, and then my friend Spanky Valentine, Swoop. But there are a lot of other creators that I'd like to go ahead and like to promote right now, just because I think they offer some unique value. So my friend Viper is Viper, the man about tech, but he also has a non-tech YouTube channel, Vipe Drive, and it's spelled VYP Drive. And it's kind of an interview podcast where he talks to creators from all walks of life and not just tech. I've been on the show many times, and I think he's great. If you're looking for a small YouTuber with a Joe Rogan vibe, Viper's the man. He's amazing. All right. I also would like to promote a Black female tech creator. Her name is Tech Me Out. Go ahead and check her out. Like, she does some great stuff with technology and everything like that. Laptops, smartphones, Apple stuff. You'll love her content. She's crushing it. And finally, one last friend, Technically T. So another tech, you might notice I'm a nerd and I like gear. So yes, I end up shouting out pretty much all tech creators, right? But also encourage you to watch videos about other people's experiences. Marquez Brownlee, MKBHD, one of the biggest YouTubers on this platform with 10 million subscribers, used his voice and he reflected on where he is and how his Black experience has affected him as a student, as an athlete, and as a YouTube superstar, and how he parses that during these times. And then he also led by example, wanting to shout out other Black creators. So that's kind of just my last thought, wrapping this up, Benji, besides one very, very last thing, because the issue of mental health is very important to me. And I have mental health struggles even outside of Black anxiety, which I've started talking more heavily about. But in this time, people's mental health is massively compromised, massively. And there are people who are struggling. So check in on your friends, reach out to them, check up on your family members, and not just the ones that are out in the streets protesting, but please help them stay safe and encourage them, not just because of COVID-19, but because of everything else, because you're seeing the brutality and the inhumanity out there for everybody. A 75-year-old man was just pushed down and was in intensive care. He could have died. We could have had yet another tragedy. At these protests, we lost, David McAtee. Sorry about pronouncing his name wrong. I'm getting emotional, tongue-tied, and wrapping this up here. But there's so much we can do for each other if we just reach out and if we're just thoughtful and we just show everybody empathy and compassion and just make sure that even you, if you're watching this and you're struggling, that's okay. And you can say so, but you also should protect your peace. If you need to disconnect from social media, maybe you should. Maybe you should ration it. Maybe you should put it in a place that's right size for you right now. Certainly don't watch anything horrific before you go to sleep at night or first thing when you wake up in the morning. Like, please do everything you can to protect your peace for yourself and for the people that love you.
Again, thank you to the both of you. Psych IRL is Donna's channel. I would highly recommend watching the David Dobrik video where it says, there's a couple, but I know there's one specifically where you talk about mob mentality, which I know, again, like that's kind of a harsh topic, but it's a context. What video is that I'm talking about?
Ooh, I've made so many on David Dobrik. Is it the David Dobrik?
David Dobrik canceled. Watch the David Dobrik canceled video. Guys. I'll try to put that in the box below, but it's the third most popular on her channel. I think it's a very relevant video because it gives you more context about some of the hate and the rumors that get started online and how. And obviously, go check out Roberto's channel. If you want to crush it here on YouTube, Roberto's your man. He's going to help you out. You guys, thank you so much. Thank you for everybody watching. Let us know in the comments area what was the big takeaways from you. Take care and spread the love.